The airfield was just an open field. There were no runways in those days. We had to rely on the windsock on the perimeter of the aerodrome, or if we were up in the air, we had to refer to the signal on the control tower and on the ground, which was a black T, which showed us which way we had to land. And it was a black ball if you're on the ground, which showed that you took off in that particular direction. It was a nominated direction, which gave us the direction that gave us the longest takeoff run when there were no wind conditions. After that, I had a few weeks at an operational training unit at Williamtown, back onto Wirraways again, and then converted to Vultee Vengeance dive bombers. And from there I was posted to 24 Squadron, where I did a tour about 7 months altogether up in New Guinea. The difference was quite marked, because the Vultee had a much bigger engine than a Wirraway, and it had a very distinct lack of visibility over the front. Quite a heavy aeroplane. I think it weighed about 7 tons, something like that. But you got used to them. You just taxiing, you had to weave from side to side to give you visibility. And when you were landing, the final leg, instead of being straight in, had to be on a curve, so that at the end of the curve, you were virtually on the ground. You'd have to take a guess as to where you were. You'd try to get almost directly over the target, then you'd roll over and you could see the target down there, and then you'd roll and line up and then just gauge how much you'd have to pull out before you released your bombs. And they were fitted with a sort of a sling which flung the bomb forward a little bit, so you sort of took that into consideration to make sure that the bomb cleared your aircraft and carried on to the target. There were 4 .3 machine guns. They weren't like the standard 303s that we had. They were slightly smaller in calibre, but we used to use those on the way down, fired as many as we could, and trying to keep in mind the main reason for we were there to drop the bomb. They weren't sort of definite targets. They were obscured by foliage, the greenery of the undergrowth. So it was a sort of a potluck. If you got your dive steep enough, you could be pretty accurate with it. If you left it if you started a bit early and the dive was a bit flat, you had to sort of think, now, how much time before I pull out do I release the bomb? It was a bit of guesswork, but if you get your dive steep enough, you could be pretty accurate. The fact that the nose of the aircraft was very much up in the air, you had to think, now, if I look over the nose, it's not quite steep enough, so you had to sort of put it down a bit further. We had traces of anti-aircraft fire. A few shots from the ground, we saw the bursts around us, but fortunately none of us was hit. I didn't do many strikes. I went as a reserve on one, and I had to turn back because of engine trouble on another. But by and large, just a few strikes that I did have, they were quite good. No, uneventful.